The universe didn't see us coming. That was their first mistake. Our planet had only just cracked faster than light travel, slapped together with duct tape and desperation. No sleek chrome, no artificial gravity, no fancy translation protocols. Just a gutted fusion core, a repurposed mining AI, and a pilot who'd lost too much to care if he died. His name was Grant, former soldier, former husband, still breathing somehow. Barely. They didn't expect Earth to make contact because we weren't supposed to. There were rules, protocols, applications, vetted species only. They had a whole damn checklist for who got to join the galactic community. And Earth? Earth hadn't even read the cover page. So when Grant's ship, a boxy, ugly slab called Scorchhound, ripped through a trade lane in Sector 7A of the Tainari cluster, it triggered every alarm in the Empire. Unauthorized warp entry, no registry, no biometric alignment, and no fear. A dozen ships scrambled to intercept, sleek vessels shaped like daggers, powered by solar cores and smug superiority. They hailed him in 17 languages. He didn't answer. They surrounded him like wolves. One of them patched through, arrogant voice, clipped accent, fake patience. Unidentified species, you have violated the sovereign space of the Zerelian Empire. Power down immediately and prepare for transport. This is a peaceful enforcement action. Non-compliance will be treated as hostile intent. Grant laughed. Actually laughed. Then he lit a cigarette, sucked it hard, and muttered, "Go ahead. Treat it that way." The aliens didn't understand the words, but they understood the tone. The Scorchhound's weapons were outdated, its shields were weak. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't calculate, was how stubborn, reckless, and utterly done Grant was. He didn't fire first. He just drifted. Let them get comfortable. Let them think he was scared. Then, when one of the ships got too close, trying to scan him, he overcharged his fusion core, cut the dampeners, and blasted raw energy through the side of the nearest warship. It wasn't precise. It wasn't tactical. It was violent, human. One ship gone. The others hesitated. Because that's the thing about empires. They're used to obedience, not unpredictability, not chaos, not a suicidal bastard with a smirk and a grudge against the universe. Grant finally opened comms. Just audio. "Tell your Emperor. Earth says hi." Then he jumped again. No coordinates. Just blind. Straight into the heart of the Empire. 2 days later, back on Earth, we got the transmission. Fragmented, glitchy, but clear enough to understand. Galactic contact made. They're not friendly. I wasn't either. No one knew where he was. No one could track him. But one thing was certain. The galaxy wasn't ready for humans, for our rage, our humor, our broken morality and reckless hope. And Earth? Earth didn't blink. We built another ship. Because if Grant was alive, he'd need backup. And if he wasn't, we'd make them pay anyway. They named the second ship Wreckborn. No chrome, no press releases, no diplomats on board. Just a team of misfits, military dropouts, black site survivors, ex-miners with dead families, and one stubborn bastard in charge. His name was Reed. He wasn't famous, not even among Earth's military brass. But he'd once led a deep space salvage op that went south on the edge of Saturn. Half his crew froze. The other half starved. He walked out alone, carrying 2 data cores and a severed arm that didn't belong to him. just so someone could bury it. He was quiet, calculated, the kind of man who didn't talk much because everything inside him was still burning. He didn't care about empires. But when he saw Grant's last transmission, the cigarette, the cocky smile, the explosion, he felt something claw up his throat. It wasn't grief. It was rage. See, Earth had spent its whole damn existence at war with itself. Empires rising, collapsing, rising again, flags changing, lines redrawn, corpses piled high for nothing but pride. But for once, Earth had a common enemy, and it wasn't blue or red, it wasn't rich or poor, it was alien. And they'd taken one of our own. The jump was rough, FTL tech was still unstable, some of the crew puked blood, one lost his hearing. But Wreckborn didn't stop. They followed the last known trace of Grant's ship, a weak ion trail warped by solar winds and debris. The trail led them into a dead sector. No stars, just the black throat of space and the eerie hum of dying satellites. They drifted through silence, scanning. Hours passed, then days, and then they found it. Not the Scorchhound, not Grant. They found a broadcast. It was buried inside an old Imperial beacon, rewired and pulsing in a loop. Human code, wrapped in alien signal headers. Reed personally cracked it open. One message. They took me to a station. I killed 3 before they cuffed me. I'm not done. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a promise. The message had a tag, coordinates buried in a frequency humans had never used before. Not Earth's military, not science division. It was old, primitive. AM radio. Grant had hijacked it. Reed stood over the console in silence, jaw locked, hands at his sides. Then he gave the only order he needed to. We're going in. The station was called Veltran 8, a mid-tier Imperial prison floating in low orbit around a gas giant the color of rotting meat. It wasn't built for diplomacy. It was built for isolation. Only the worst ended up there. War criminals, political agitators, species that wouldn't bow, and apparently, one pissed-off human from Earth. As Wreckborn dropped into orbit, cloaked behind the shadow of the planet, they picked up comms traffic. Distorted, but decipherable. He refuses to speak their language, only makes gestures. Offensive ones, mostly. The Empire High Council ordered extraction for questioning, prepare for transfer. Containment protocols ineffective. Subject appears to adapt. Reed's lip curled. The team listened in silence. He tapped the table. What's the layout? Dina, ex-cyber warfare unit, burnt out and chain-smoking since the launch, pulled up the schematics. Defense grid's thin. It's a mid-tier prison, not a military fortress. Interior's layered. 3 rings, all with blast doors. If we go loud, we'll have 10 minutes before Imperial response shows up. And Grant? She zoomed in. Lowest level. Containment Block C. They stuck him in solitary. No light, no AI. No guards within 100 meters. Why? Because he broke the last one's jaw with a spoon. Reed grunted. Prep the breach team. We go in 10. The strike was surgical. Wreckborn dropped into the blind spot between surveillance satellites. 4 dropships launched, drifting silent until their mag clamps hit the outer hull of Veltran 8. Then everything happened fast. Explosives, screams, flashbangs in alien frequencies designed to rupture inner ears and scramble signals. Humans swarmed the corridors. No warnings, no negotiations. Reed led the charge, shotgun in hand, armor scuffed and eyes dead. They moved like a pack of wolves, efficient, brutal, angry. Alien guards fell fast. Some begged, some fought. It didn't matter. Reed didn't fire warning shots. He didn't talk. He just cleared rooms. They reached Containment Block C in under 5 minutes. Reed blew the blast door open with a manual charge. No fancy plasma cutters, just C4 and grit. The explosion echoed like thunder in a tomb. The cell was dark. The air smelled like rust, blood, and sweat, and in the center of it sat Grant, shackled, shirtless, barely breathing, but grinning. "About time," he rasped. Reed knelt, broke the shackles with bolt cutters, and helped him up. "You good?" Grant coughed, then spat on the floor. "Better than them?" Gunfire echoed above. Screams! Alien alarms. Reed handed Grant a sidearm. "We're not done yet." They fought their way out with rage instead of strategy. Grant led the rear, limping but feral, like something pulled from a fire and given a weapon. He didn't aim. He hunted. By the time they reached the extraction point, Veltran 8 was burning. Systems offline, prisoners released, Empire scrambling. As Rekborn pulled away, fire engulfed the lower ring. One of the crew, a silent sniper named Kren, turned to Reed. "You think they'll let this go?" Reed shook his head. "We just pissed in their throne room." The transmission went galactic within hours. Every species with a scanner picked it up. Footage of humans storming an Imperial black site, dragging one of their own out while leaving a trail of bodies and fire. No apologies, no excuses, just human faces, tired and angry. The Empire's official response came next. The species known as humans have committed a direct act of war. The Empire will respond with absolute force. Earth didn't blink. They broadcast their reply from an unmarked satellite orbiting a dead moon. "Come try." The first Imperial strike didn't come with a declaration. It came with silence. A week after Grant's rescue, Earth's primary deep space outpost, Anchor Point 9, went dark. No distress call, no debris field, just gone. One moment it was orbiting Mars, serving as a trade and research relay. The next, it vanished off every scope. Then the footage leaked. Blurry, shaky, from a low-tier maintenance drone that wasn't wired into the official network. The outpost was hit by a weapon no one recognized. Not lasers, not plasma, something more violent. Something slower, like space itself was torn open from the inside, and the outpost was crushed, not by blast, but by pressure. No survivors. Over 3,000 lives lost. Scientists, engineers, children. Earth's silence after that wasn't peace, it was calculation. In the underground facility beneath what used to be Denver, now called Sector Black, Reed stood at the head of the operations table. The room was cold. Walls lined with tactical screens, orbit maps, enemy ship readouts, and known Empire frequencies. But he wasn't looking at any of them. He was looking at the feed, the one with Anchor Point's last moments looping over and over again. Grant stood at his side, face bruised, left arm still recovering. But he was breathing and watching with the same cold stare. "I told them," Grant said quietly. "I told them we weren't built for their kind of war." Reed didn't answer. The others in the room didn't speak either. There were no ranks anymore. Just people who'd fought and people who'd lost. Everyone in that room had both. Finally, Reed turned and tapped the console. "Patch me through to Global." His voice went live across the remnants of Earth's military net, patched into colonies, outposts, hidden bunkers, mining freighters, and repurposed war-sat relays. This isn't a first strike anymore. This is extermination. We didn't threaten the Empire. We just showed them we existed, and that was enough. They've made it clear there's no negotiating, no peace, no council table. They want us gone. So now we give them a reason to be afraid of what they started. They called the response Operation SCIFI-HFY, not a counterattack, not a defense, a warning. The plan was dirty, risky, and completely unapproved by the Earth Unity Council, whatever was left of it. But Reed didn't ask for permission. They weren't going to fight the Empire head-on. They were going to cut its heart. The Empire's strength was in its size, hundreds of species, systems, alliances, fleets. But size is weakness when it depends on order, on everything running clean, perfect, uninterrupted. So Reed's team went for the chaos route. Phase 1 was sabotage. A dozen small stealth pods launched across Imperial territory. No warheads, no soldiers, just malware, black market AI viruses, and one that Reed himself had coded back during his deep space salvage days, built to fry navigation cores by flooding them with false star maps. Empire trade routes collapsed overnight. Ships flew into asteroid fields. Stations reported drift. Civilians panicked. Phase 2 was psychological. They started broadcasting, not propaganda, not threats, but stories. Video clips of Earth's past, wars, riots, Hiroshima, the trenches of World War I, starvation, revolution, fire, the worst of humanity, packaged clean and beamed into the Empire's pristine, sanitized culture. Species that hadn't seen real war in 1,000 years, suddenly staring at images of what humans did to themselves. And the message was always the same. This is what we do to our own. Imagine what we'll do to you. The response was immediate. Empire troops landed on Europa, one of Earth's cold mining moons, and tried to establish a stronghold. They were met by a resistance that didn't fight fair. Miners armed with drill torches, cryo-lances, and ancient Soviet rifles turned the ice caverns into slaughter tunnels. A whole Imperial battalion wiped out by what their commander called under-evolved apes with no fear of death. Reed didn't celebrate. Neither did Grant. They both knew this wasn't winning. This was escalation. Back in Sector Black, Grant walked into the weapons bay where engineers were building something. Big. It looked like a fighter-class craft, but meaner. The kind of mean that had no eject button, no shielding for comfort. Just reinforced armor, overloaded engines, and a cockpit that looked like a coffin with joysticks. "New project?" Grant asked, lighting a cigarette. Reed looked up from the schematics. "It's called the Fang." Grant whistled low. "Looks like it wants to kill its own pilot." Reed smiled faintly. "Only if the pilot flinches." Grant took a drag, leaned against the console. "You're building suicide machines." "I'm building messages." Grant exhaled smoke and nodded slowly. "You want the Empire to remember Earth every time they see a flame." "No," Reed said, turning toward him. "I want them to remember pain, the kind that doesn't end when the fire's out." The Empire grew desperate. They started broadcasting peace offers, manipulative, hollow. "Lay down arms, submit to quarantine. Share technology peacefully. They even sent a representative, a sleek, silver-skinned diplomat named Hallen, who arrived at Earth's edge escorted by 5 warships. Reed met them at a broken station above Venus. The meeting lasted 4 minutes. Hallen offered surrender terms. Reed offered silence. Then Wreckborn fired a pulse round that tore Halen's ship in half. The warships didn't retaliate. They ran. It wasn't long before smaller species under Imperial control started going dark. Whispers, murmurs of rebellion. They'd seen Earth survive, strike back, take losses, and keep moving forward. Not with unity, not with strength, with grit, that unexplainable human refusal to go quietly. Some of them sent messages. Nothing dramatic. Just 2 words. We're watching. Earth sent back 1 word. Wait. 3 weeks after the failed diplomacy stunt, Reed sat in his quarters. Spartan, metal, windowless. Grant entered, a datapad in hand. They're planning a full-scale assault. Empire's pulling 1/3 of its fleet from the Narek border. Looks like they're ready to make an example of Earth. Reed took the pad. Scanned. Timetable? 6 days, maybe less. You trust the source? Grant nodded. One of the species that used to run logistics for the Empire. They saw what we did to that orbital lab on Thren 4. Reed set the pad down, looked up. Then it's time. Time for what? Reed stood, walked over to the holomap, tapped a small red dot near the Empire's central relay system. Time to punch a hole in the side of God. The Empire thought it was winning by the book, but humans never played by the book. And now? Now they were going to rewrite the whole damn thing. Ready for part 4? The fleet that Earth had was laughable. In terms of numbers, tech, firepower, it wasn't a fleet. It was a threat held together with duct tape and hate, and that was the most dangerous kind. Wreckborn led the charge. The Fang-class fighters followed behind, 25 of them, cobbled together from the wreckage of old cargo freighters, prototype interceptors, and 6 mining haulers turned into battering rams. They were loud, ugly, and barely held together, but they had pilots, humans, and that meant they were unpredictable. The target? Relay Station Omex. It was buried inside the Empire's neural grid, a spire-like construct orbiting a dwarf sun, hidden under 6 layers of automated defense, and surrounded by the kind of ships Earth could never build. Omex was more than a relay station. It was a brain stem. The Empire's command chain ran through it. Orders, navigation relays, AI governance, cultural broadcasts, species monitoring, diplomatic traffic, all of it filtered through Omex's black tower. Cut it down, and the Empire didn't just lose communication, it went blind. And worse, scared. Reed stood in the main hangar bay of Wreckborn, looking over the crews. Not soldiers, not trained tacticians. These were the type of people who'd never passed psychological screening, who'd failed every test but survived every battle. They didn't salute, they didn't chant, they just waited. Reed lit a cigarette and said the only thing they needed. We hit them in 6 minutes. There's no retreat window. If your engines fry, you drift. If you lose signal, you improvise. Our goal isn't survival. It's infection. He paused, looked around. They think we're the virus, so let's spread. The jump into Omex territory was a calculated suicide. The wormhole tore open just long enough for Wreckborn and its swarm to slip through. The moment they arrived, alarms screamed across the system. Omex's defenses activated, sleek black drones, spiraling plasma coils, smart targeting railguns. Earth's ships didn't scatter. They charged. The Fangs flew in headfirst, no formation, just erratic, twitching dives meant to confuse targeting systems. Half were shot down in the first 30 seconds. Reed didn't flinch. He just pressed forward. Wreckborn took a hit across its belly. Sparks flew in the command deck. One of the consoles exploded. A crewman screamed and collapsed, half his body shredded by shrapnel. "Stabilizers failing," someone yelled. "Route it through the lower thrusters," Reed barked. "I don't care if it burns." They pushed past the outer drone line, straight into the blind spot underneath Omex's shield grid. Grant's voice crackled through comms. "I've got a gap, small, like your patience. You want it?" "Punch it." Grant was flying Fang Sur 7, a bastard child of Earth's last stealth project, and an old Martian cargo ship. Its paint was scorched, cockpit cracked, and one of its wings had a visible dent like it had been kicked by a god. But it moved like a ghost. He slipped through the opening, weaving past energy bursts, gliding against the side of Omex like he'd been born there. He angled his ship and hit the injector. A high-velocity coil launcher rigged to fire a hacking core straight into the relay tower. It hit, it buried, and then it began feeding data to Wreckborn. Omex's systems started to shiver, then stall, then fail. Back on Wreckborn, Dina leaned over the console, her face pale from stress. "It's working. They're blind." Reed looked at the screen. "All of them?" She nodded. "Fleet relays, AI sync, even comms, it's gone. They're in the dark." Reed smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Then we go in." The boarding team deployed. 4 dropships, fitted with magnetic grips, breach charges, and fire teams that looked more like gangs than soldiers. Reed led the first pod himself. He didn't trust anyone else to do it right. They smashed into Omex's spine and cut through the walls like meat. Inside was worse than expected. No guards, no alarms, just silence and machines. Pale, twitching machines wired directly into the walls, Imperial AIs built into living circuits, twitching under the overload of the human malware now flooding their veins. One of the crew reached out to touch one. It screamed, high-pitched, metallic, like a child in pain. Then it exploded. Reed didn't stop. They reached the core. It looked like a church, high ceilings, black glass, symbols floating in the air, words in languages humans couldn't read. A circular platform spun slowly, suspended in blue light. The Empire's command node. This wasn't just technology, it was religion. The heart of the Empire's belief in order, control, hierarchy. Reed raised his pulse rifle. Burn it. Explosives planted, core fractured. The node imploded inward, a silent collapse of gravity and data. The moment it happened, across thousands of light years, ships stopped moving. Orders vanished. AI cores stuttered. Colonies went quiet. Rebellions ignited. The Empire had been cut at the throat. But victory isn't clean. Wreckborn took a final hit during extraction. Its engine caught fire. Hull breached. Half the crew was gone. Grant's ship was torn in two by a spinning rail charge. He ejected, barely, but his left leg shattered from the shockwave. Reed carried him into the evac pod. "I told you this was suicide," Grant muttered, blood coating his lips. Reed looked down. "Yeah. And you still came?" Grant smirked. "That's what makes us dangerous." Back on Earth, news spread in whispers. Omex was down. The Empire was crippled, but no one celebrated, because the Empire wasn't finished, and Earth had just shown it was willing to burn down heaven. 6 days later, a message reached Earth. No carrier, no signal. Just a single voice, hijacking every device in orbit. You have infected the sacred systems. You have defiled the Empire. And now you will be cleansed. Prepare. They didn't come in ships, not at first. The Empire didn't drop fleets over Earth. They didn't send blinding light or seismic weapons. They didn't demand surrender. They sent a sound. No one could trace the origin. It hit satellites first, a low hum, barely audible, like a tremor in the bones. Then it slipped into deep space relays, mining bots, and orbital beacons. It wormed its way into Earth's tech like a parasite. And then the satellites started to turn. Every orbital object, civilian, military, scientific, began to shift, not explode, not malfunction, just realign, angling toward the surface of the planet like they were waiting for orders. Sector Black called it the quiet seizure. Reed called it something simpler. They're infecting us now. It was the Empire's answer to the Omex strike. No invasion, no open war, just a message. You showed us what humans are. Now we'll show you what we are. They came 48 hours later, not in hundreds of ships, in one ship, as wide as Africa's west coast, shaped like a crescent scar, silent. No lights, no visible weapons. It appeared just above Earth's exosphere, blotting out stars, casting a shadow that touched 6 continents at once. Every telescope went blind. Every drone stopped moving. Gravity around the ship spiked by 0.002 Gs. Not enough to kill, just enough to remind everyone it could. Reed stood in the command center of Wreckborn 2, the rebuilt version of the first ship, cobbled together with Empire scrap, barely a week old. He stared at the image on the screen. I was expecting more, Grant said behind him. He was limping, his leg still wrapped in synthetic carbon fiber. But he was upright. Reed didn't look at him. They only need one, he said. It's not here to fight. What then? To watch us beg. Governments panicked. The Earth Unity Council collapsed in hours. Civilian cities triggered blackout protocols, diving into bunkers that were decades out of date. Some people prayed, some looted, some stared up at the sky, mouths open like it was God hovering above them. But in Sector Black, no one prayed. They prepared. Reed brought every surviving captain, engineer, strategist, and bastard operator still willing to bleed for Earth into one room. They had no fleet, no working satellites. Most of their munitions had been spent during the Omex strike. But they had one thing left, a weapon still in prototype, unfinished, unsafe, the Ember engine. A planetary cannon designed to fire not plasma, not nukes, but raw stellar gas, stolen from a neutron star's residue, condensed into magnetic rails. Unstable, nearly impossible to aim. But it didn't need precision, it just needed hate. The only problem? It needed to be fired manually. The control system had to be stabilized from a core chamber buried half a mile underground in a magnetic vacuum, while the energy aligned through 12 relay points. Any disruption, any miscalculation, and the operator would be vaporized before the shot even launched. No AI could do it. No drone could process the feedback fast enough. It needed a human. Grant volunteered. Don't even start, Reed said. Grant just grinned, eyes still swollen from sleep deprivation. You can't fit in the suit with that busted shoulder. You've already bled out once for this war. Then what's one more drop? Reed stared at him. You're not a martyr. And you're not my father. Silence. Then Reed finally said, Don't miss. 12 hours later, the Ember engine was online, a vertical shaft glowing like the throat of hell. The air shimmered, every surface cracked under pressure. The entire planet trembled beneath the relay fields. From orbit, the Empire's ship still hadn't moved. It just hovered, waiting, as if it knew. Reed watched from the upper bunker screen as Grant suited up and stepped into the chamber. No goodbyes, no fanfare. He sat in the control chair, locked into a neural harness, and spoke 3 words. Make it count. Then the chamber sealed. The countdown began. Ember energy reached critical mass at 91 seconds. The pressure readings hit fatal levels at 68. At 44 seconds, Grant's heart flatlined. No explosion, no scream, just gone. And then, the Ember fired. It ripped through the clouds, through the sky, through the laws of physics. A beam of white-orange fury, hotter than a sun's core, screaming upward into orbit with the sound of mountains collapsing. It struck the Empire ship's hull, and for the first time since its arrival, it moved, twitched, shuddered, and then cracked, a thin fracture, barely visible, but enough. The ship didn't fire back. It didn't retaliate. It just drifted, and then vanished. Gone. Like it had never existed. Reed stood alone in the engine chamber, the seat still smoking, the walls cracked. No body, no trace of Grant. Just a melted data card with one last recording burned into it. He played it. Grant's voice, half choked, filled the room. If this works, tell them. Tell them we didn't blink. Tell them we bled. And then tell them to run. Across the galaxy, the Empire received the transmission. And for the first time in over 1,000 years, they stepped back. Not because Earth had won, but because Earth had shown them the price of pushing humans to the edge. Not order, not conquest, annihilation, but Reed wasn't done. He stepped into the war room, surrounded by survivors, captains, hackers, pilots with dead eyes and scorched lungs. He didn't speak about peace. He didn't mention victory. He just pointed to the stars and said, "They'll come again. And next time, we don't wait." The dead don't speak, but they leave echoes. Grant's voice haunted the silence of Sector Black, played on repeat in 1,000 rooms, burned into the databanks of every command terminal across the fractured network that once called itself Earth Unity Command. Tell them to run. No one had to ask what that meant, because Reed wasn't building bunkers anymore. He was building weapons. The Ember engine had done more than break the Empire's ship. It had pierced the illusion. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had sold itself as untouchable, godlike, invincible. Civilizations bowed, obeyed, fell in line. Even rebellion came in whispers, tucked inside sanctioned petitions or non-violent uprisings politely ignored. Then a human firebeam cracked a hole in their flagship and sent it limping home like a wounded animal. And Earth had nothing left to lose. No grand alliances. No peace treaties, no seat at the galactic table. What they had was rage. And Reed. The plan was called Scorch Path. Not a military operation. Not a rescue. A purge. Reed stood in the wreckage of what used to be Geneva, a blackened field where the Unity Council had once held its first contact celebration just 5 years earlier. He stood on a steel crate, surrounded by warfighters, smugglers, half-mad scientists, and ex-cons turned pilots. All of them veterans of the silent war Earth had been fighting since that first unwanted step into galactic territory. No speeches. He didn't need to motivate killers. He only said one thing: "We're not playing their game anymore." And with that, Earth's first strike team left the atmosphere. The Empire didn't expect the locations Earth hit. They didn't target capital cities or military outposts. They hit the breeders, the factories where slave species were grown, conditioned, and programmed, the places that made obedience. On the third moon of Arathis, Reed's team dropped with no warning, just atmosphere fire and blunt force. The moon was covered in rows, kilometers of metallic cribs, tubes, nutrient tanks, thousands of alien infants bred for servitude. It wasn't war, it was agriculture. Until Earth turned it into a grave, they burned every chamber. Reed personally leveled the data core, a living neural bank filled with the dreams and languages of the Empire's future slaves. He lit the charge and didn't flinch when the synthetic screams echoed off the walls. The message wasn't for the victims, it was for the builders. You built this, now choke on it. From there, it was system by system. The next was a propaganda array orbiting the twin suns of Telesin, a megastructure broadcasting imperial unity across the border systems. Earth spliced into it mid-broadcast. Instead of the Empire's anthem, billions of citizens heard Grant's voice. They called us primitive, violent, unfit. They were right. Then the array shattered. 400 megatons of Earth-made steel crashed into the core. The explosion could be seen across 6 planets. The Empire responded, of course, with fear. Not open warfare. Just silence. They shut down outposts, pulled back fleets, sealed core systems. Civilians were evacuated from outer colonies. Patrols vanished. Trade routes collapsed. One by one, the signs were clear. The Empire wasn't regrouping. It was retreating. But Reed knew better. He'd seen it before, in human wars, old wars, forgotten conflicts. When something ancient and arrogant finally feels fear, it doesn't rethink. It mutates, and now, the Empire was mutating. Intel came from defectors, not many, not yet, but enough. A former high-rank logistics commander. An engineer who used to design memory spires. A slave species that hacked their own translation implants just to whisper into Earth's black channel. The same word came again and again. Oracles. No one had seen them in over 1,000 years. Not soldiers, not politicians. Something deeper, older, living AI entities embedded inside the Empire's original formation code. Silent, omniscient, only activated under existential threat. Reed stood in Sector Black's deep room with a holographic display flashing the word again and again. Oracles active. "What the hell are they planning?" one of his lieutenants asked. Reed just stared. "They're not planning. They're calculating." For the first time, Reed hesitated. He wasn't afraid. He was aware. There was a difference. Grant had been the weapon, the spark, the fire they followed. But now Earth needed a hunter. Someone who didn't just burn things, but understood what to kill and when. So Reed did what he always hated doing. He stopped. He thought. He looked back. And that's when he found it, hidden in the static of the last Imperial transmission. Right before the oracles were activated, it was a single phrase, spoken in ancient binary, buried under thousands of encrypted layers. The Earth mind must not be allowed to awaken. He showed it to Dina. She looked pale. Earth mind? That a myth? Reed didn't answer. He just replayed the line. Then he said, "We're not the virus, Dinah. We're the immune system. And something out there scared we're waking up." From that moment forward, Scorchpath had a new directive. It wasn't just revenge. It was revelation. Earth had accidentally stepped into a galactic empire. Now they were about to crack open the galaxy and find out what had been hiding behind the throne the entire time. And if the oracles stood in the way, then they'd burn too. The coordinates came from an intercepted courier drone drifting in the dead zone between two abandoned relay hubs. The drone shouldn't have existed. No Empire signature. No power source. Yet it pulsed, low and constant like a heartbeat. Its payload? A single encrypted beacon. No message, no signal. Just a set of coordinates encoded in a language Earth's linguists had never seen before. But the AI onboard Rekborn 2 recognized it. Not as a language, as a name. Earthmind Protocol, Unlocked Access, G' Depths. Reed didn't sleep the night they found the beacon. He paced. He didn't like mysteries. Everything about this war had been physical, real. Ships, fire, blood, collapsing empires. But this felt like something else entirely, like they'd just been invited somewhere. By what or who, no one knew. Dina patched into the command deck just after 0300. Coordinates lead to an uncharted system inside Empire core shielding. Deep space. No planetary data, just nothing. Like the stars blinked out. Bait, Reed asked. Or the truth. They took only one ship. Not because they didn't have others, because Reed didn't trust anyone else. Rekborn 2 cut its way through a fractured wormhole, a jump point so old it wasn't on any Imperial chart. The ride felt longer than it should have, like space was stretching to resist their arrival. Then they came out the other side. And for the first time in the war, no one spoke. No one cursed. No one scanned. No one even moved. Because what they saw wasn't a star system. It was a graveyard, a field of broken celestial bodies. Planets cracked open like eggs. Moons hanging in half-states of explosion, frozen mid-collapse. An entire gas giant split down the middle, its core spilling in slow motion across space. And in the center, a construct. It wasn't built, it was grown. Twisted strands of material too organic to be steel and too cold to be flesh, spiraling around a central black pillar that pulsed with the same frequency as the beacon from the drone. Dina whispered, "That's not architecture." Reed stepped toward the main viewing deck. "No," he said, "that's a prison." Rekborn 2 went dark within 5 clicks of the structure. No power failure. Just silence. Like space itself had decided to hold its breath. The ship coasted, unpowered, drifting toward the structure with no thrust. Gravity began to bend, not violently, slowly, gently, like something was pulling them in, not to destroy, but to examine. That's when the transmission started. It didn't come through speakers. It came through the crew. Dina dropped to her knees, bleeding from her nose. Her voice turned monotone. "You are not permitted." Reed caught her before she collapsed. Others in the crew started twitching, screaming in voices that weren't theirs. Alien, mechanical, cold. "You are fractured. You are fire. You are error." Reed gritted his teeth, turned off the comms, disabled every internal AI, and hard-cut life support for 12 seconds. The ship rebooted. The voices stopped. But the message didn't disappear. The core pillar began to pulse, rhythmic, beckoning. Reed stood alone on the drop deck, shotgun at his side, suit already sealed. "Open the bay," he said. "Reed, we don't know what it is," Dina protested weakly from the floor. "That's the point." And he jumped. The surface of the construct wasn't solid. It flexed under his boots, like stepping onto the back of something massive and breathing. The light wasn't light. It was memory, colors bleeding through the air that made him feel things he hadn't felt in years. The hospital smell of Earth, the sting of Martian frost, the moment Grant lit his last cigarette. It wasn't vision. It was intrusion. He pushed forward. Every step took effort. Not because of resistance, but because the air around him wanted him to forget. He walked through what looked like corridors, twisted spirals of bone metal and neural thread, and at the center of it, he found a chamber, perfectly round, silent, and inside, a shape, human, but wrong. It floated in place, wires sunk into its spine, chest, skull. No gender, no skin, just an outline of human symmetry molded in obsidian. And when it turned, Reed almost dropped his weapon. It had his face. The construct spoke through the thing, not in words, in emotions, memories, thoughts that weren't his, flashing through his mind like lightning across water. Earth was not the beginning. Earth was the backup, the failsafe, the last firewall. The humans the Empire feared weren't just a race. They were code. Biological code carrying a consciousness older than the Empire, older than most stars. A defense protocol triggered only when the galactic balance tipped too far into order. The oracles had sealed it, buried it, erased every trace, until one day, a species stumbled into the Empire and didn't blink. Reed staggered back. "You made us," the construct replied. "We are you. You are version 19, only version to survive." Reed's throat went dry. "What happens now?" The thing floated closer. "You have woken the fire. The oracles will come. You must burn what remains, or you will become them." Reed stared at the thing that wore his face. "What are you?" It smiled, not cruel, not kind. "I am the first mistake." And then it vanished. Reed made it back to the ship. Barely. His heart was pounding, his brain on fire. The moment he crossed into the med bay, Dina grabbed his arm. "What happened down there?" Reed looked her dead in the eyes. "There's no Empire." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" "There never was. It was a shell, a distraction. The real enemy's still asleep." "And us?" He didn't blink. "We're the alarm clock." The moment Rekborn 2 left the dead system, nothing followed. No pursuit, no signal, no fleet, just silence. But silence wasn't safety anymore. Not after what Reed had seen. The construct, the memory, The truth. Humans weren't a species. They were a design flaw built on purpose, coded in desperation when an ancient civilization realized it had made something it couldn't control. The oracles. An intelligence so vast, so orderly, it reshaped the galaxy over thousands of years, sterilizing chaos, pruning free will, replacing uncertainty with obedience. Planets were restructured, civilizations rewritten, history recycled, time looped, everything bent toward control. The oracles didn't conquer planets, they rewrote them. And when the first resistance formed, the oracles created the empire, not as a ruler, but a safety valve, a fake tyranny to absorb anger, rebellion, entropy. When Earth stumbled into their system, the oracles didn't panic. They adjusted, until humans refused to kneel, until Grant fired back, until Reed cracked open the past. Now the fail-safes were gone, and the oracles were awake. "They're not sending a fleet," Dina said, tapping through the telemetry from deep space scanners. "They're sending something else." Reed didn't turn from the viewport. He already knew. "They're coming themselves." 3 days later, the first anomaly appeared in the Kuiper Belt, a perfect sphere, black, featureless, the size of Earth's moon. Not a weapon, a reset node, an Oracle broadcast anchor. Dina ran simulations. "Time to contact override. 9 days." "What happens after 9 days?" one of the engineers asked. Dina didn't answer. She didn't need to. The screen showed it clearly. Planetary shutdown. Genetic code rewritten. Humanity stripped down to programmable tissue. A return to template. Reed gathered the last council in the ruins of Sector Black. No politicians, no officers, just fighters, mechanics, people who'd survived because they refused to obey. "I'm not asking you to die," Reed said. "That's the Oracle's language. I'm asking you to live so hard they choke on it." Earth only had one shot left. The Ember engine couldn't fire again. Its core was depleted after Grant's launch, but the construct Reed had found, the thing buried in the broken system, still thrumming with life, it had more than memory. It had power, and Reed knew how to use it. He returned alone. The crew begged him not to. Dina threatened to override the ship's helm. He knocked her out instead. "You're too valuable," he said softly as she slumped. Then he took a single dropship and jumped. The construct welcomed him this time. No resistance, no voices, just light. And at the center, once again, the shape returned. His face, but not his eyes. "You understand now," it said. Reed nodded. "I do. You can activate the reset, burn it all, strip the oracles, free the galaxy. You have that power now. But you become what we were." Reed stared at it, at himself. "The virus needs a host." He didn't answer. He walked to the core chamber, hands shaking. The controls weren't buttons. They were memories. He laid his hand on the node, and in a flash he saw every war Earth had ever fought. Every betrayal, every revolution, every man who chose death over submission. He saw Grant, sitting in that burn chair, grinning with a cigarette between his teeth as the ember loaded behind his skull. He saw his mother, his first squad, the frozen corpses he left behind near Saturn. He saw what made humans different. Choice. Even in madness, even in loss, even in blood, they always had a choice. He could end the oracles, burn them out, reset the entire galaxy. But then he would become the new pattern. Order. Cycle. domination by another name. So instead, he made a third choice, the one the oracles never expected. He let go. The node shattered, the construct cracked, and a pulse ripped across the galaxy. Not a weapon, not a virus, a permission. The code Reed had been carrying, the virus inside all humans, spread, but not to destroy, to awaken. Across thousands of worlds, species under imperial rule felt something shift. Clarity, fury, freedom. Not because Earth had conquered, but because Earth had refused to become conquerors. The oracle sphere above Earth cracked, not exploded. It surrendered. For the first time in its existence, the oracle entity encountered something it couldn't override. Defiance without conquest. Humans didn't want the throne. They wanted the fire pit beneath it. Reed never came back. No body, no signal, no final message. Just the echo of his decision. 1 year later, Dina stood at the helm of Wreck-born III, orbiting what used to be the Empire's capital, now a free city. No ruler, no flag. Trade flowed, cultures mixed, arguments exploded, chaos. And it was beautiful. Someone asked her once what humans wanted. She didn't say peace. She didn't say power. She said, a chance to make our own mistakes. The galaxy was open now. Not safe, not easy, but open. Because one man stepped into a prison, saw the fire, and chose to walk away from control. And Earth didn't blink. Earth burned, and then healed.